Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to our discussion of Icehouse in the series that we like to call Tom and Sam Rank a Band That You've Never Heard Of. Coming back with a bang with this episode.
Yeah,
The police, we couldn't really use that trademark, but you know,
it's
we've got
it's
it here.
earned it here. Yeah,
So, songs time. I believe it's my turn to go first on the songs since you went
yeah.
first on the albums. It's
It's
only
only
fair. Please subscribe if you haven't. I forgot to say that at the end of the albums video. We would appreciate it very much. We're getting very close to 300. So, I mean, we might be at 300 before this goes out, but we'll see. It might be wishful thinking, but we're close regardless.
yeah. Let's
My
see.
number 10. I'll be very interested to see how much overlap we have here because there could be some.
Yeah.
My number 10 is from Man of Colors.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to have this one. It's Man of Colors. One of the songs that sort of stuck with me the most melodically, and like a few songs on this album, actually has a decent sort of sound that I really like. It is quite sparse, but it's enjoyable. It's quite warm. Again, the lyrics are simple. I wouldn't call them weak. They're very simple, but they work to create a sort of emotional resonance, which I think does work on the song. So Man of Colors is my number 10. Good song.
Cool. My number 10, coming in from Measure for Measure, is No Promises, which on my vinyl version opens the album very strongly. I think that Ivor Davis's vocal range is prevalent here. I think it's very catchy. I love that chorus, and I like how it changes as the song progresses. It's my number 10, and it beat out some strong competition on my end.
Very nice, very nice. My number 9 is one I think we may have in common. It is the song Icehouse from the album Icehouse by the band Flowers, soon to be called Icehouse.
We
Yeah,
picked it up, actually. That's my number 9 as well.
oh, there we go. Brilliant. So I think it is a very good way to open their career. I'm not in love with this album, but I think it's solid enough. I think this song is definitely among the highlights. Again, I mentioned that sort of colder sound compared to their other stuff, which puts me off a little bit, but it works really with this song with the instrumentation that they were working with. Like you said, in the early 80s, it's more synth driven. There's not as much going on. There's drum machines, etc. You know, I think it sounds pretty cool. The synth part is really nice and it sort of flutters in and out. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool song.
Nice. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it opens the album really strongly. I love how it fades in. It's like, well, welcome to the experience we're going to give you. Icehouse, here we go. And you mentioned in our album ranking how cold that album feels, and I think it's deliberate because the first thing that you hear of Icehouse is it's always cold inside the Icehouse. So when you said it, I thought, oh, well, that's pretty good praising, actually, because indeed, I think the album's meant to be cold. And that song in particular is about this lost love and how now all that's left is this cold feeling. There's no love inside the Icehouse. I think it's a really strong song. And yeah, it suffers because of the production value of that debut, but it's a really strong number. It's the strongest song on that album to me. And I really love it. I'm really pleased to have discovered it.
It's nice we have a sync up. We had one in the albums video and we have one here in the songs video. So
Hey.
yeah, I do agree that it was probably an intentional choice to have that sound for the album. It just might not be my preferred sound, is all.
Yeah,
my number 8, another song that might show up on your list. I'm not sure because there is a lot of songs from this album that you like, and a lot of songs from this band that you like. Surprisingly, if no one knew that, it's from Sidewalk.
right.
And it is "Stay Close Tonight," which is my favorite song on Sidewalk. Yeah, just a genuinely very good pop song. I think the bass line is really nice. Again, I'm going to keep waxing lyrical that I think the sound of the bass is a little bit warbly and a little bit not unpleasant. It just sounds off. It sounds like they didn't mix the bass properly and they didn't engineer it properly. But the song is really cool. Again, very strong Roxy Music vibes, but it overcomes that because it's just a very good song with a nice atmosphere and a nice melody. It's my number 8.
Cool. Love it. Right, my number 8, coming from Code Blue. It's a song you may have, because you did mention it in the album's video. It's Jericho Bay. What a great song. It's definitely the standout in that latter part of that album. It's such a catchy song. I spoke a little bit about it in the album's video, but I will reiterate how I feel like it's a really good story about someone leaving a place and having only a few select souvenirs and or memories of that place. And it carries it off with such a catchy chorus. I love it. And the guitar on it, I think, really slaps. And I actually think that even though, as far as I was concerned, it went too far away from the synth sounds in Big Wheel, I think he plays a lot. He plays it really well with the instrumentation on this track and this album in general, really, in comparison. I mean, the album was a 7 for me. I really enjoyed it, even though it was my penultimate one. And I think Jericho Bay is such a strong track. It's one leading up to doing my songs ranking I was listening to over and over again. It really caught my attention. And I'm really, really pleased to have that now.
We'll see if it shows up on my list. My number 7 is actually my favorite song from Icehouse. So it's not the song Icehouse. My favorite song is We Can Get Together. So when you were slightly slandering it, I know you still like it, but slightly slandering it, I was like, oh, interesting. I just think it's a really cool synth pop song. I really like the guitar work throughout. I think what is refreshing about listening to the songs back from this debut is that the excess of the mid 80s albums is gone. And it is very stripped down, which does work for songs like Icehouse and We Can Get Together. It's got a nice sound. It's pretty catchy. In fact, it's very catchy, maybe to a detrimental effect for some people. I think it's really good and definitely one of their better early career songs for my money. We Can Get Together is my number 7.
Neato. My number 7 comes in from Primitive Man. And it is Trojan Blue. Opens up the B-side on the vinyl version in such a rewarding way. I think that it melts me. I love the synth coming in and the chorus. It comes in and then the guitar brings it in. And then after each repetition, Ivor Davis sounds more and more pained, eventually into this cry, and the way it ends is so strong. It feels like a very well put together song. I'm just blown away with it. I love that song. And even though I've heard that album so much and a lot of stuff has unfortunately fallen off of the list due to overplay, that one has still managed to take a strong grip off the list. And it's a very firm 7.
My number 6 is from an album I'm not expecting to show up for you. It's from Big Wheel, and it is the second track, Satellite, which is, again, the song I said reminded me the most of David Bowie. And I was using that as a negative for a lot of songs, but for this song, it does really sound like it's from some lost David Bowie album, which is really cool. Even the way he sings the satellite is so
I like that.
Bowie.
I do like it.
It's so David Bowie, and it's really cool. It gets stuck in my head a lot. That's all I really have to say. It's got a big, powerful sound. There's a lot of sort of gusto to it, which I do appreciate. Again, I mentioned that at times Ivor Davis is a bit too apologetic and not sort of in your face enough. Not that he needs to be all the time, but in those songs where he is driving forward a sort of more impactful message, I maybe would have liked his vocals to just sort of a bit more, which they do on this song, even though he's singing about space and not about, apartheid. Satellite is a really, really banging song. And I think these top 6 are all songs that I would put in my sort of listening rotation and re-listen to again and again. So at least I've got that out of it. And 3 of the 6 were new discoveries, so that's cool.
Neat. Yeah, I won't keep you in suspense on that one. It hasn't made a list, but it's a strong contender. Very strong indeed. Nothing else on Big Wheel really competed with it. That was the obvious standout track for me on that album. So that's really cool. My number 5, no, number 6 is from Man of Colors, and it's Crazy, which I know you didn't like, but I think it's so sappy in a way that really works for me. This idea, like it's something I don't hear a lot in songs. This idea, like, oh, you really like me. That's odd of you. Like there's there's this love story going on, but he can't believe how lucky he is, and he's just questioning it all. And it's another one of Ivor Davis's songs where instead of putting the story into a he or she, it's to want a guy like me, and so it feels more personal. And I think, you know, those songs are pretty good. I like the songs where he's telling a story about someone else. They have merit, and they're in my songs list higher. But I do like how personal it feels. You can put yourself in that song. You've got to be out of your mind crazy. I think it's really good. I can get why maybe you don't think it's very good. I understand your reasons, but I don't care. I like it.
Good for you. Good for you. I think I mentioned it that I prefer his slow songs. I do also think his more personal songs work the best for me personally. You know, when he's writing in the first person, it's easier to relate to him than when he's sort of trying to sort of paint a picture and tell a story. It just doesn't work as well for me. But you know,
there's one lyric I really like. You're the one sure thing when I get lost in the game. I just think that that's like there's one sort of certainty that it's not because he loves that person, it's because they love him. And that's awesome.
My number 5 is back to back from Big Wheel, and it is the opening track, Big Wheel. So the first 2 songs, I was not kidding when I said I got really excited by the start of this album. I thought it was based on the first 2 songs. I thought this is going to shoot straight up to number 1. It didn't really keep up that, but I think this is a really infectious pop song. Again, super Bowie vibes, especially the ohs in the chorus. Just yeah, I was like having a good time. You know, I think Ivor's vocal is really solid. He's got again some power and some bravado, which I really like. The album in general has this, you mentioned it, sort of a big rocking sound, loud guitars. The drums are really sort of pounding. And I think that works for the songs that have some meat on the bone. But there are plenty of songs that don't. But the songs that do are beneficiaries of that, having the big sound, basically. And yeah, I think the production works really well for this style of song. And it was nice to hear them doing something different. So Big Wheel's my number 5.
Fair play. My number 5, coming in from a latter album as well, Code Blue, is The Great Divide, which absolutely slaps. It's one of my favorite new discoveries because a lot of the songs on this list I didn't know before, but I never listened to Code Blue, and it's so catchy. I love that chorus, and the ending as it adds to that chorus as well, and it goes over. It comes up an octave as well. It really feels like this passionate song. And it opens very strange with the do 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 do. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel, but a lot of the songs on Code Blue did open in a way that they didn't carry on. Like the next song opened with bagpipes, but you know, that's by the by. It's not on my songs list, that one. But The Great Divide is a fantastic song. I think it's incredibly catchy. It's a standout for me on that album, and yeah, it's a song I keep going back to alongside Jericho Bay. But it's one that I feel like it rocks harder, and I think that's why I've had it a little bit higher on the list.
Yeah, I think that song opens with like some slide guitar in it. It's sort of like a sort of almost country-ish sound.
Yeah,
it's
sounds like the Wild West.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and then it just sort of becomes a regular old Icehouse song. But it's an interesting intro given the subject matter. I think it works. Now, I haven't mentioned Primitive Man yet, but you're going to be hearing a lot from Primitive Man in my top 4.
I see.
My number 4 is from Primitive Man, and it is Street Cafe, another of the great songs on Primitive Man. This one sort of hooks me in from the intro. It's quite a cheesy song, but it works really well. And I wrote down that I could imagine it being on the same radio station on GTA 5 as All the Things She Said by Simple Minds. It has that same kind of vibe of like just driving through. And so I had a sense of nostalgia for it, even though only really heard it a couple times before. It just has that vibe of a certain period of my life. And yeah, it's a good pop song, and part of that really great start to Primitive Man that it just can't quite keep up. But Street Cafe is definitely a song I'll go back to, and it's not even my second favorite on Primitive Man. So that says how much Primitive Man you got coming up.
Yeah, indeed. Right. Well, I also have a lot from a couple of albums coming up. Yeah. My number 4 comes in from Measure for Measure. It's Paradise, which I think you mentioned in the album video as being quite cheesy. I don't know how cheesy I found it. I understand maybe where you might have been coming from, why you would consider it cheesy, and perhaps why I wouldn't. And therein lies the difference between yours and my music taste. Paradise is really catchy. I think that I really appreciate the different vocal styles and the backing vocals on it. I feel like it's a very layered sound, and unlike its twin, as far as I'm concerned, The Flame, because I always listened to them hand in hand before, Paradise seems to feel more steady on its feet. I feel like there's more going on in it. It changes pace midway through. It goes quiet for a little while, and then it comes in with this massive end chorus. I feel like it's doing a lot more. I don't think that the lyrics are as strong perhaps on The Flame. I think The Flame had a very strong message in it, but I think Paradise is just a song that I prefer going back to. It's a lot more light-hearted. The one step that brings you closer to heaven. I think it's a really nice song, and it earned its place very early on in my list. I think I drafted a list of songs that I really liked before starting the album, and Paradise was already on it, so it couldn't go wrong in my eyes.
Yeah, I think people should note that you are a man whose favorite Genesis album is Invisible Touch, and it was my 14th favorite Genesis album. So your sort of barometer for cheese is like very abnormally high, which, you know, that's fine. Just mine isn't.
Yeah. That's why the 80s often doesn't work for you.
Well,
often.
Yeah, often, because you know, just to promo the channel a bit, the next discography I'm doing with Ryan is The Replacements, and the next discography we're doing is The Smiths, who are two of my favorite artists from the 80s. So I'll be able to remind myself why I love the 80s so much.
After
parts of it. Hey, we're talking about the good songs now. My number 3 is probably the only Icehouse song you could call an 80s classic, because it is their most famous song, Great Southern Land from Primitive Man. The first time I heard it, it was my favorite song from the album, and I think it isn't now, just because some of those other songs in that initial run, one other song in that initial run, has overtaken it, just because it feels a bit more fresh to me now. You know, I think this does have a unique vocal style to it. He does have that similar tone to Brian Ferry almost at all times, and that isn't enough to say that he's a Brian Ferry wannabe or a Brian Ferry ripoff. But sometimes he does do that sort of Brian Ferry style of singing as well. But on a song like this, he has the same tone, but he's singing a lot deeper than Brian Ferry ever does. And that gives it this sort of very sort of unique, it's just like Great Southern Land. It's like a very sort of, I don't know, a unique vibe. And like you said, it's sort of a very personal song, sort of all about identity and sort of pride and that kind of thing. And, you know, that's a nice reason to write a song, you know? Like, a lot of the time I'm looking at these songs and I'm like, why did you write this? And with Eva Davis is either with Code Blue is like, well, I found a newspaper clipping and I did my best. It's like, whereas with Great Southern Land, it feels like there was a purpose and a passion behind making the song, and a great pride in making the song. And I think that goes a long way. And it is just a really good song. If you know any Icehouse songs, you know this song. So I think it's really good. It's a really respectable bronze medal, actually, because I thought it could have been the gold, but just re-listening to my top songs, it fell to the bronze. So still very good. And these top songs are very good.
Right, fab. My bronze medal comes in from Sidewalk, and it's I Don't Believe Anymore. Whew. Now, I feel as though if it weren't for these other two, this could be a gold song in a few discographies, really. It's it starts so slow and brooding, and that sax coming in, very 80s sax, but sax nonetheless, and it builds up, and then in comes Ivor's vocal, very deep, very sultry, and then he comes in softly with the chorus, and then the drums come in, and then he goes up higher with the next one, and then the pain starts to bleed in on the next choruses. The saxophone really builds. It's a song that just accelerates slowly, but builds to such a point. And you just want to scream with the song, for those of you who like it, and sing along. And it's another song of his where he feels very, it's a song he's singing about himself, or at least it's in the first person. And I don't know what happened to him, but I'm crying with him. And this idea of not really knowing where to look and what to think, and just totally exacerbated and feeling, what's the word? Disillusioned. I don't believe anymore. Like this, the trust is gone. There's no faith. It's just, it's a painful song to listen to, and for that reason, I adore it.
I only just realized I'm wearing my David Bowie shirt this entire time. That wasn't even planned. That was not even planned. I just sort of put it on and then, whoops.
It's like something was on your mind.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's a cool shirt though. Anyway, my number 2 is my highest of the new discoveries, although my number 1 does feel like a new discovery because it was one of those where I knew it before, but I was hearing it in a new way for the first time. And my number 2 is from Man of Colors, and it's Electric Blue.
Oh!
Yeah. The song that I proclaimed as being, when the first half of the first time I heard it, I was like, this is unbearably cheesy. But by the end of the song, it won me over to the point where I said, well, I'll give it an honorable mention for the songs. And then when I was looking at my songs as I was going through the albums, I was like, no, Electric Blue needs to be a bit higher. No, it needs to be a couple of spots higher. And then when I was drafting my final list, it was at like number 4, and then it's ended up at number 2.
Wow.
It walks that tightrope between being that sort of cheesy and corny pop song and being just catchy and fun and openly being himself, which is what I love about this song, is that this feels to me, I think I said that this album is the one where I feel like he most sounds like himself. Like he's not trying to copy anybody else. I'm not saying he was always trying to copy other artists. Maybe his influence just bled into his singing style, but you get what I'm saying. It's it just feels so unique, and I don't want to say personal because there's nothing meaningful about it, but it's just so fun, and it feels so loose and just happy. And why not? just why not love this song, Tom? Enjoy it. And the chorus is so catchy. It's a totally a worm, and it's really struck me how this song has just got its hooks in me, which does give me hope that one day maybe some other songs from Icehouse can have the same effect, because this sort of came out of nowhere, really. So
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, so Electric Blue is my number 2. I love it, and yeah,
and I love that for you.
Yeah.
Wow. I really was not expecting Electric Blue to come anywhere near you. That's a very pleasant surprise. Very pleasant.
It is such a cheesy song, but I don't know, it just works. It just works.
So my number 2, probably not going to be so much as a surprise for you. It's coming in from Sidewalk, and it's Stay Close Tonight.
We got a match.
Yeah. It just works. It comes in with that bass. It does a very similar thing with Don't Believe Anymore. It comes in a very moody sort of way, and the bass really sets the tone for that. It's not as strong for the rest of the album, but it is prominent at that start. It introduces you to that song, and I love Guy Pratt for it. He was in the band for what I consider to be its heyday. His last album was Measure for Measure. His first, I think he went on tour with Primitive Man, but Primitive Man was just Ivor Davis. He did all the instrumentation on it in the actual recording. But Guy Pratt's here, and you mentioned in the album's video that the bass feels synthetic, and you also mentioned it kind of as Stay Close Tonight, and I get it, but I feel as though out of all the albums, Stay Close Tonight has a bass line that feels most comfortable. It feels like it belongs the best. It feels most naturalistic, although I do understand that it is still synthetic. It's still playing victim to what the rest of Sidewalk had. That being said, it then starts to build up. It's a very moody song. It's not sad, but it feels like kind of in the dark, you know. It's like the little edgelord that it is. It's such a fun, not fun in the sense that the song is very positive and light, but like you get involved and it's like you feel pretty cool listening to it, or at least I do. I'm a strange lad, but it's I really enjoy it, and the repetition in the end of this stay close tonight. I feel like I could talk all day about what I feel that song's about, but there's this, the last verse. It's like, you and I belong here, two of a kind, together day after day. It's like, so welcome to the dark place, as it were. And I really like that. I really like that is where he went. Sidewalk is more of a moody album. I feel like the better songs on that album are the ones he's playing more with tone. Taking the Town is a little bit too, oh yeah, but right, Don't Believe Anymore and Stay Close Tonight are so like deep. And I feel as though Stay Close Tonight just hits the edge on Don't Believe Anymore, because I like the instrumentation on it better, namely that bass, especially at the end as it fades out. And I feel like it's what Ivor Davis and Icehouse is all about.
Yeah, I will say that I think the main reason why that song works for you as well as it does is because the bass line itself is brilliant, and it kind of distracts me from the sound of the bass. But the bass line is really good, and that's the thing that matters most, I feel like. My number one is from Primitive Man, and it's Hey Little Girl, which is it's surprising for me as it is for you. It is I think you mentioned it, that Primitive Man has the most sort of sophisticated production sound of all their albums. And while I don't think the consistency of songwriting is that great, I have 3 songs from that album in my top 4 songs. I think this is one of the real gems. It's super memorable and catchy. Again, it oozes Roxy music, but as I mentioned in the albums video, it's not a bad thing. It would be one of the best songs on Flesh and Blood, I think. And I think that's how good it is. And that was one of my favorite Roxy music albums. So I just think it's really good. The vocals are really nice. The chorus is really memorable. Yeah, it's just a really lovely song. And, you know, if I'm being honest, compared to other number 1 songs for other discographies, it's not going to rank that high. But yeah, I still think it's really great. And at that point, you are just comparing favorites. And I think that's just naturally that the Icehouse discography falls near the bottom for me in general. But that doesn't take anything away from how great I think this song and my top, like I said, 5 or 6 songs are.
All right. What very surprising. Those top 2 songs are quite cheesy and quite 80s, but I get it. I think Hey Little Girl, it toes itself away from cheese a little bit more. There's more going on with the instrumentation.
I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where the melodies just clicked with me, and then everything else stopped mattering.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And that's exactly what's happened with my number 1, which comes from Measure for Measure, and it's Angel Street, which is a song that wasn't a single. There's not really much about it online, but for some reason it has got itself into my head. And I really feel for this. He's singing about some girl that's kind of living a nondescript life. And she knows no one, like she's picking on what to wear, but she knows no one will care. So easy to forget, just another sad affair, the girl on Angel Street. And I like the little bridges between the verses, and it kind of feels a bit eerie as it's coming in. This kind of, I feel like the whole thing is like, it feels very ghostly, because I feel like it's a metaphor for this character being basically a ghost in her own life. And I love that. I love the vocals on it, and especially the backing vocals after the bit where he sings the chorus, and then he goes toujours l'amour, l'amour, and then it builds up and crashes down, and then the chorus plays it out. I think it's a really nice song, and it's one of those I think even amongst Icehouse fans, it's not very commended because it's not one of the big singles. It's not a single at all. It's a deep cut. So even by Icehouse standards, I'm going out on a limb here. But for some reason, that song, whenever I hear it come on, and I know it immediately with that high piano, and the bass comes in on that one. The bass is good on it as well. Unsung hero on it, a lot more subtle than it was in Sidewalk in general. But it just hits weird with me. It's like you said with Hey Little Girl, it's just got in my head. It's just, I always feel like it's like, oh yes, kind of song when it comes on. And I look forward to it when I'm turning over the B-side on Measure for Measure. Just a fantastic song. And it gets the sound seal of approval, whatever that means.
Yeah, no Great Southern Land on your list. That's interesting.
A close call there, unfortunately.
So I have 4 honorable mentions to just run through quickly. I've got them ranked as well. So my number 14 would have been Someone Like You from Sidewalk. Number 13, The Flame from Measure for Measure. Number 12, The Kingdom from Man of Colors. And number 11, Jericho Bay from Code Blue.
Oh, you nearly made it.
Yeah, very close.
Oh, never mind. I'm glad at least we can agree on that one. I have 6 honorable mentions. Street Cafe. I haven't ranked them, but they're the close calls. I have Street Cafe, Great Southern Land, Taking the Town, The Flame, which has been overplayed for me. It was on the list. So I was like, oh, once the new album started coming in, I couldn't leave it there. Man of Colors and Electric Blue, which are all really
nice
solid songs, and they all had to fight for me. I love Icehouse. I think that they're a terrific, like, little hidden secret. That's what they feel like for me. They're a nice secret band. So putting together the songs list was really difficult for me for that reason. And I lost some heavy hitters along the way, songs that I've really loved over the years that I've known Icehouse, but they couldn't stay because the other ones hit harder.
And there it is. We've talked for a long time about Icehouse, probably the longest anyone on the internet has ever talked about them.
Yeah,
unless you want to search some interviews with any of the members of the band.
But I feel like we talked about it longer than they do as well.
Yeah, probably, yeah. So if you have listened to any Icehouse, let us know. We'd love to hear what your favorite songs are. If you decide to listen to some Icehouse, maybe sample both of our medal position songs. That would be a good way maybe to get a good idea of what they're all about. You know, the idea of them being this sort of unsung hero band. If you know the band, how do you feel? Do you feel that they deserve to be forgotten like I do? It's probably harsh. It's probably harsh, but I had to get one last dig in there. And or do you think that they are truly an underrated gem like Sam does? Or do you lie somewhere in the middle? Let us know. If there are any of you Icehouse fans out there, we would love to hear from you. Our next discography is going to be The Smiths, which is not a big undertaking at all. So hopefully we'll get in there fairly soon, even though things are busying up very quickly for Sam and I. August was supposed to be the month where we're not doing as much, and we took the whole month to listen to all the Icehouse albums. Whoopsie. But we'll probably get hopefully 3 or 4 more discographies in before the end of the year, before we do our end of year bash.
We're already at the same point that we were at last year.
Yeah, we are. Yeah,
series with everyone because you've done with everyone else. This is we're now equal with what you did in 2022. So there's definitely more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel, and hopefully we will catch you soon.